Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We are hot off the heels of round number 4 of the 2026 AFL season. It was a round where the Lions roared, Carlton crumbled to North Melbourne's immense pressure late, while Richmond continued to struggle down below as Fremantle record a big victory. And of course, Len, potentially one of the games of the year, if not one of the games of the rivalry.
Yes.
That has been the rivalry for the last 15 years. They keep doing it, Geelong and Hawthorn. They keep bringing out banger after banger. We are recording about an hour after the conclusion of that game. It was a ripper. We are up and about. Absolutely. It is hot, white hot, fresh. I am Jesse Dart, as always, joined by Liam. This is the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. A review over there is much appreciated. Regardless of where you're joining us from, we have a lot to get through today. Plenty to talk about across the AFL continuum.
Now, Jesse, don't forget that little cheeky handle at CMPerfect_AFL. That's where they can find us at all those different things. Don't forget.
We're too big now with our 126 subscribers. They don't even need the handle. We are massive.
Yeah, who needs to diversify or spread out anymore? We're happy with that 126, which is nearly as much as the Eagles lost by this week. But that's aside from that, Jesse. Aside from that.
They didn't even cop a spot in my intro. That was really quite bad from them.
Look, I think we'll talk about them as we get to the game recaps, as we always do. Guess, like we said, we are fresh off that classic game. I reckon that and the Bulldogs Brisbane game from opening round of the two hot contenders for games of the year so far, that is for sure. But Jesse, this week, we do have a bit of a deep dive that you'd like to talk about. Now, I was thinking about this a little bit before we started recording this session. We were talking about what we're going to do. Jesse's playing the Hawthorn theme song, apparently, by the sounds of it. He's so happy.
Is that
they've... Oh, I can hear that, my friend.
What is going on?
Jesse's decided that rather than doing the podcast, he wants to watch a replay of that classic game. What are you doing? You goose. You absolute egg. My goodness me. But no, we're talking, Jesse, about like all the different things we could talk about, right? We were going to do a thing about Essendon and how disastrously terrible they are, but everyone's been doing that. Everyone's been jumping on. And so you've decided to go a little bit of a different route this week. Give the people something a little bit different, haven't we?
We have, although not that different, because this was inspired by Kane Corns' take on the Power last week, coming out of their loss to West Coast, where he's talking about, he named about 8 players on the list who aren't AFL standard. And you know what? Honestly, I agree with Kane. So it got me thinking, because this is meant to be an elite competition that we're talking about here, the AFL. This is the highest competition of this sport you will see anywhere, just because you're a single country. It's not like you got soccer where, you get the diehards say the Bundesliga is better than the Estonian Premier League.
Well, that's just fact, Jesse.
Hey, up the Estonians. No. But the problem you've got here with the AFL is it is the centralized terminus for the elite players in this sport. And what we're now starting to see in the competition post-COVID is an abominably weak talent pool. And now we're talking about adding another team into that, which will inevitably lead to another team into that. So we're now talking about another 50 players as AFL footballers in the next 3 years, potentially another 100, including that 50 in the next decade. And I want to look at the fact that right now, this competition can't support 18 teams. And you can have... Talent-wise, absolutely. Financially, fine, no worries there. But we are actively degrading the product, and that can eventually tumble down the hill. I mean, you only need to look at the state leagues to see that. Once you start taking out the eliteness of a competition and watering it down, obviously these players went to the VFL or AFL as it became, but you then start to lose interest. Now, I'm not saying that will happen here, but I want to talk about this current crop of bad sides, and they are really quite bad. So that's West Coast. We can keep North in there because I still think they're kind of circling around that drain. West Coast, North, Carlton, Richmond, Essendon, we'll throw in Port. So the likely bottom 6 based on what we've seen so far this season.
Yep.
Maybe North can get to 11th, but I think Carlton are clearly a bottom 6 side. West Coast are clearly a bottom 6 side. Richmond, Essendon, both clear bottom 6 sides. That's kind of where we're landing with these things. I think Port will be there too. So let's have a look at how bad these sides are and the progression of sucking over the last decade at the bottom of the ladder, because what you see when you look at the ladder positions or the ladder points totals in the last decade is a gradual decline into some awful football sides and no bounce back from COVID, which you might have expected.
I'll bring up the graphic now, Jesse. Now, but what's the main concern here? So we've got, obviously, we saw with the AFL what happened when they brought in all 18 teams in quick succession, and there was concerns about the talent pool there. So your concern is that at this stage, we're going to have Tassie coming in, and then we just don't have enough. The clumps, Jesse, we've been talking about the clumps for the last couple of years now, and you've got the bottom half and the upper end of the table. Do we think that come Tassie, we're just going to have just a clear division in the competition between the teams who have done well and those who haven't?
I think we already do have a clear division in that regard. I think we're past that point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, let's go through this. I don't know if you've got the graphic up yet for our viewers, but for our listeners as well. We're going to talk about, I guess we can talk about three main teams here in this conversation, being North, West Coast, Richmond, certainly in a modern context. Now, in the last 4 years, those three teams have exclusively raffled last place between themselves. Yeah. So there already is a clear divide. The divide's done. The divide is already there. These three teams, and obviously I'm very much in praise of what Richmond are doing at the moment in terms of gutting the list and rebuilding. But it's getting harder because I don't think the talent's there to support this, especially when you have to stretch it over 18 teams, and you can talk about draft compromisation all you want. But that's not the issue here. A compromised draft is largely irrelevant if the entire pool is degrading. For every Tom McCarthy or Joe Newcomb that comes through the mid-season draft, there's a guy that's probably lucky to even be remotely close. It's great when an SSP hits the ground running for an AFL side nowadays. I would argue that's more of a symptom of the fact that the total list profiles are worse than they were 5 years ago. That they now look better inherently because the average overall quality is decreased. Yeah.
No, fair shot. So where are you going to start? Just you're going to start back in the 2015s. You're going to start.
Let's go back to 2015. So, okay. Running through some points tallies for the last place teams in these seasons. So, 2015 you got Brisbane and Carlton joint last with 16 points. 2016 you've got Essendon joining Brisbane with 12. 2017 Brisbane again on 20. So that's 5 wins. Just keep that number in mind.
That's quite a lot for a last place team, Jesse.
That is quite a lot. 2018, Carlton with 8 points. They were horrible. That was Brandon Bolden era. 2019, Gold Coast with 12. 2020, look, I'm willing to give this a bit of a pass mark. But in saying that, Adelaide and North finished with 12 points in a 17-game season. 2021, North with 18 points, so 4 on a draw. 2022 and 2023 is West Coast and North together forever on 8 and 12 points, respectively there. 2024, Richmond with 8. 2025, West Coast with 4. So if you look at the last 4 seasons, you've got a peak total of 12 for the Wooden Spoon. That's a concern for me because what we're now seeing is we're seeing uncompetitive games of football. We saw a very uncompetitive game at Optus Stadium on Saturday. We saw a pretty uncompetitive game at the G an hour before that, and we've seen uncompetitive games all season. Now, sure, when these bad sides play each other, it can be a bit fun. Yeah, but when you're looking through some of the other results and you're seeing, well, Fremantle after the first half comfortably dealt with Richmond. That was quite easy for them in the end. Carlton's a bit of a weird one here because if they played the second half, well, they played the first half, they played the second half, they lose by 150 points every week. But I mean, Essendon got smashed off the park by Port. That was rather boring. Arguably the same for Richmond Gold Coast. This is now 2 weeks ago. Going back to round 1, obviously Hawthorn smacked around Essendon in that regard. North smacked Port. And Gold Coast smacked West Coast. So, and this is just this season. This is a month into 2026. If I was to extrapolate this over 2025 and 2024, well, I'd just be reading games that West Coast lost by 100 points or games that North lost by 100 points. And I don't think that's really productive to this conversation. But I look at this and I think, how are we going to fix this? Because we're about to make it harder for ourselves because we now need to support another 50 AFL standard players in an environment where we seem to be trending in the wrong direction. And I think I really want to harp on that point of, there is talent in the state leagues. We've seen that with Milan Murdoch. We've seen that with Sherry coming in at Fremantle. Let's just name 2 West Australian examples. Lockie Blackston did well in the mid-season draft for Essendon as well. Blamires and SSP at North has done a good job too. So the talent, it's not an issue of the talent not being there in that regard. However, I think it's fair to say that the 18-team format has stretched the pool so thin that it allows these guys to look better. And I feel like we're at a point now where the strength of the competition hasn't been this weak since probably the urge to merge days in the early 90s.
So what do you reckon it is, Jesse? Because obviously we've had 18 teams for quite some time now, but obviously you're focusing on the last, decade or so. Before predating that, was there this same issue, do you think? Or is it something that's more of we've seen trickle and get worse as the decade's gone on?
I mean, there have been basket cases for as long as there's been AFL football.
Sure.
I mean, Carlton in the mid-2000s were terrible, but that was off the back of a large number of sanctions due to their salary cap cheating. I'm trying to think of other side to it.
Hello, Freo 2001.
Well, that was just an abominably bad. But see, the thing is, this is a lot of this, and this is the same for these clubs as well. But a lot of it can be traced back to poor decision making at the executive and the higher levels. I mean, Fremantle was horribly managed from the start. I hear from Fremantle fans who were doomed to fail from the start because of the AFL. No, it's because we had some of the most incompetent managers in professional sports that you ever would have seen. I mean, seriously, the place was a joke for the first 5 years. It would not even remotely resemble a professional environment. Carlton, obviously, with the salary cap cheating. Essendon haven't won a final in 21 years. I don't need me to tell me that. Everyone tells them that. But you look at other teams that have bottomed out and gone up again. I mean, Hawthorn in this time, 2015 to the present, won a premiership, slowly faded away, bounced back, and now one of the best sides in the competition. Looking at that, Gold Coast obviously up the top of the ladder now, Adelaide up towards the top of the ladder now. North were in prelim finals within this catchment as well. So it's not to say that teams can't move around, and there should be rubber banding in a strong competition. I'm not saying that we should just segregate North, West Coast, and Richmond down the bottom forever. That's actually the opposite of what I'm saying. Sure. The problem is for teams like West Coast, Richmond, and North isn't a quote-unquote compromised draft. It's simply that we don't have the ability to support this number of teams. Now, obviously, North were in line to move to the Gold Coast in around 2007 and become essentially what the Suns are now, just without the addition of a team. Now, it's always hard to say this because people get very emotional. We say, well, that team should have gone there. Or because the fans get very upset. And I get that. And I'm not having a go at North for this or their fans for this. They're quite entitled to say, shut up, we don't agree with you. It's my team. And that's totally fair. But for the health of the competition, I think if we looked back on this now, that probably should have happened.
Yeah.
I feel that should have happened.
Yeah.
Greater Western Sydney probably needed to happen. But the question is, would that have made a sense for a team 17 and then Tasmania as an 18? Like, could we have then staggered that a bit, maybe bring in the Giants a few years later?
Yeah.
And then gradually do it? Because I'm concerned now that we're going to have to do a team 20 because I don't see any of these clubs becoming redundant and going away now because, AFL has never been more commercially successful, and it's worth acknowledging that. It is a very commercially successful product at the moment. But in terms of competition strength, I mean, how many times has the criticism for these lists been, gee, their bottom 5 or 6 best 23 guys are holding them back?
Yeah.
Like, that's most of the competition now, whereas I feel like if you look at, and I'm cherry-picking very good sides here, but Geelong 2000s, Brisbane 2000s, Hawthorn 2010s, even sides that were very good in that era, like I think Fremantle you could probably point to for that Hawthorn comparison, Collingwood during that time as well, and against Brisbane, even Collingwood in the early 2010s themselves. It wasn't there to the same level, I don't feel. And I'm very interested to see what people think about this. Is this like a nostalgia take from me? I was talking about an era where I grew up watching footy a lot younger compared to now. But I'm looking at this the competition strength, and I'm saying it's never been weaker. And I feel like we're also separately from this main point. I feel like we're also focusing more on athleticism rather than fitness. And I'm starting to notice that a lot this season, where players have never been more athletic, but there's been a few guys not running for repeat efforts. And we'll talk about this in the games recap. Whereas like this stuff 20 years ago would get you benched and probably dropped.
Yeah.
And it seems like for a lot of players, repeat efforts are just non-existent anymore because the game's gotten to a point where we've sped it up, but I don't think we've kept the fitness curve in line with that speed.
So Tassie coming in a couple of years next year, whenever they start doing that stuff.
It shouldn't happen. The very short answer is there should not be a Team 19.
No, and you've said this before. You've been very vocal about the fact that you don't think there should be, but it's coming. So that aside, we know it's now on our doorstep. What's the concern then, Jesse? Is it going to be a case of Tassie going to come in and just get the dregs of the competition? I mean, how do you fix it for your West Coast, your Richmonds, and your Norths if there's going to be a quagmire of talent in the talent pool where you can't actually get anyone quote unquote good to come in? Like, where do we go from here?
Well, I'll answer the first part of your question first. Will Tasmanians get the dregs? I don't think they will, because I think the AFL know that they can't have another awful side as an expansion club for a few years. Now, it's obviously, you can't come in as an expansion side and expect instant success. No one is suggesting that is a disaster. But the concessions they've been given are pretty good, right? Like, they've been given pretty good concessions here to the point where you kind of have to raise the benchmark for what an expansion club does with those concessions in terms of what you expect out of them. Because this is a very generous list of concessions the AFL has given Tasmania. So I don't think they'll get the dregs, but it does kind of pose a different question of, well, how do clubs like West Coast, North, Essendon, Carlton, I mean, like, you'll hear Brett...
It kind of feels like they've got they have to have put their eggs into the one basket already, right? They've got to commit to them being successful. The AFL have to commit to Tasmania being successful. Otherwise, oh, no, I'm talking about these other teams like your Richmonds and your West Coasts. Like, they've got to have what they need now, like, because there's not going to be anyone coming in. So, like, they've got really no other choice, right, than just to build with what they've got, and then fingers crossed it all works out.
And then you see things like the AFL changing the bidding system for father son academy players for the same year. Like, how is that fair? Yeah. On any side? I mean, ironically, it'll affect Essendon, Carlton and Port, three teams we're probably talking about in this conversation, who have upper echelon father-son or academy prospects in the next 2 seasons. Like, it's now or never for these clubs to kind of sort out their rebuilds. And I don't care what Brad Scott says. Essendon need to rebuild. And we're talking changing that as well. So I just think, I mean, you know my thoughts on this as a whole, right?
Yes.
It's bring academies in for all clubs, let them develop their own talent. If they suck on their own, that is their fault. It is not the fault of anyone else. And then also I would argue strengthens the competition as a whole, because if you've got that talent pathway from a for-profit talent pathway, for lack of a better term, you're incentivized to develop players.
Yeah. More
so than, a waffle club who might get, a very thin wad of cash for that player being drafted. There is far more incentive for an elite environment. And you know what? That will trickle into the other competitions as well. Like, it's better for everyone if everyone has their own academy. That's how this would all be fixed. But I think it's worth highlighting that this is a very exciting time for the game, and Tasmania deserves some form of representation at the highest level, but it needed to happen 40 years ago. You can't... Doing it now in the current state the competition's in risks the strength and integrity of the AFL, in my view. As an on-field product, I feel like we're diluting it to a point where we're going to start to see a poorer game.
Now, your concerns with the talent pool, Jesse, is this coming off the back of just what the people are saying about the upcoming drafts and who's coming through the system? Or is it something that is what's it born from?
It's coming from my eyes watching AFL games this season and saying, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, we could talk about this more in the North Carlton recap, but some of the skills in that game were atrocious. Like, these AFL players not hitting 20-meter passes under no pressure.
Yeah.
To uncontested players. Like, it's unfathomable to me the amount of skill errors and poor decision making we're seeing at the highest level now. And it comes from the fact that, realistically, these guys are probably very good state league players.
Yes.
And that's it. And then you see them change clubs and say, oh, what a revelation. Like, look at Will Brodie. Will Brodie's probably a great example here. Couldn't get a game at Fremantle. Goes to Port. Isn't very good.
Yeah.
Had come from Gold Coast, where he also wasn't very good. The bloke's now in his third club. Liam Reedy couldn't get a game at Fremantle. Now can't get a game at Carlton.
Yeah.
Or worse. Campbell Chesser got games at Fremantle. Sorry, West Coast. Not Fremantle. Now goes to Carlton. Has been dropped from this Carlton side. This Carlton side, who is terrible.
Wow.
That's a concern.
So then what are they doing? They bring it doesn't matter. That's a different conversation.
Yeah,
so what are they doing? They're bringing in. But I guess that'd be, are they just trying to blood these younger players to bring them in, which is why we're seeing more of the younger, not as experienced players coming through the system or coming through the games, and what's kind of adding to that poor football potentially?
I mean, I don't mind blooding kids. It's not the first year players I'm having a go at here. To be honest, I think the first year players in many ways have looked a lot better than some of these recruits. Were really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think this is like, honestly, I know there was a lot of doom and gloom about this draft class from 2025. We could talk about this probably, let's give it a couple of weeks. But I think we'll talk about this and kind of grade some of these young players who have come through, because there's been a few that have really impressed me so far. Across pretty much most teams have had a good start to the season with their recruits. But you look at the SSP crop, the guys who get picked up in mid-season drafts, and then they have to play because there's injuries, and you can just see these guys aren't AFL players. And look, they're infinitely better at football than you or I, and that's very clear. And I shouldn't even need to caveat that, but you'll get some peanut in the comments who makes that point for me. But these guys aren't AFL players, and I see it at Fremantle all the time. I look at them like, why are you here? What are you doing?
Yeah,
like, that's not to say they can't be on the list, and obviously injuries happen. But you see some players getting game time, and you do wonder, like, is this what's best for the competition? Would we be better off as like a 12 to 16 team? I mean, honestly, I would say the magic number is 12. Now that's never going to happen in a billion years, because you simply can't merge the West Australian and South Australian sides to make super teams. I know that would never happen.
God, could you imagine?
Look, really, that's what really. And I know I've said this as a Fremantle fan. It probably should have been left as one West Australian, one South Australian side.
Interesting.
I feel. Or dilute the Victorians, but that was equally unlikely.
Yeah, correct. Expansion was always going to be the way that went. never the dilution.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Honestly, if you had enough money in private equity, start your own league. Start a rebel league. That's XFL. How you force change. AFL 2.
AFL 2. All right, Jesse, we'll finish this up. Crystal ball, though. Put your hat on. So we've got Team 19. Team 20 is obviously around the corner.
Yep.
Where do you see the competition going now in terms of these this talent pool, which is what we're talking about, and how it's going to look in the future?
3-year rebuilds will take 5. Clubs who are good will attract talent more easily and stay on top for longer. Not to say there won't be movement around, but you'll see a more Americanized standing within these teams. I think there's going to have to be changes made in the draft again if they want to fix that. Like, honestly, they're probably going to have to get rid of academies. Honestly, and they shouldn't do that. And I'm an ardent academy defender. But I look at this now and I say, let's say Brisbane keep rolling, right? And I meant to wrap this up, but let's say Brisbane keep rolling through. They're not going to get worse. They have the ability to produce top-end talent. They're also very good at drafting. You know, famously, Logan Morris, not an academy player. They did pretty well there. They're not going to... Their list is pretty young, so they're probably going to continue on towards the back end of this decade at the very least. I don't see Brisbane coming down significantly, like talking like bottom 6 down, for a number of seasons. And I think you could probably look at teams who are pushing into that position now. So like an Adelaide, a Gold Coast. I mean, Gold Coast is obvious with the academies as well, but a Hawthorn. I think you're going to see up for longer. So like right now, I would want to be a fan of any other club but Carlton or Essendon, because those are the two crashing to earth at a time where there's no help coming.
Yeah. Now, go on, Jesse. Go on. If you got your say on this as well, please let us know down in the comments, of course. Where do you see the competition going? Are you happy with Team 19 and 20? Are you worried about your teams? And if you are a Carlton or Essendon supporter, what are you going to do? There's Carlton supporters who threw their scarves onto the field. What are you going to do?
Throw their scarves at the telly.
Oh, no.
As long as it hits the subscribe button, I don't care.
Very good, Jesse. Very good. Now, good little deep dive there, Jesse. But we have games to talk about. With 8 of them this week, so we're going to have to back to 9 next week. How exciting, Jesse! It was mentioned several times at the end of this game that the game had just finished tonight that we're back at parity. How fun! And it's only round 5. 6, 5.5. How are we doing that, Jesse? You haven't done your opening round gambit for some time. I miss
we
it.
have matured as a podcast.
I'm glad. All right, Jesse, we'll kick off with our games recaps now, starting with I was going to say a surprising result, maybe not to many, but at the Gabba, 17-17, 119 to the Brisbane Lions, absolutely pantsing the Collingwood Magpies, 10-5-65. I mentioned this to you at the start of the game, start of the game. I wouldn't have known the result by then. The end of the game, when they lost, the Collingwood Magpies lost, that are they in a similar position to the Swans, who, if they lose a couple of their big guys, they kind of capitulate? Obviously, Dacos of the Nick variety was a late exclusion from the game. What are your thoughts?
I disagree. Collingwood's bigger problems are forward of the ball. Now, they're also not downhill skiers like Sydney are, which probably helps their case as well. I think this is more of a case of Brisbane returning to their natural position and Collingwood being a 8th to 10th place team versus a top 4 side at the Gabba. Obviously the margin has gotten probably bigger than Collingwood would have liked. I mean, you look at the 6-goal last quarter to 2 doesn't help. There's a 6-goal, first quarter. But I think if you look at this here, Collingwood have kicked 10 goals in the game from 15 scoring shots, which isn't bad, including the last goal of the game. They're going to struggle to beat most sides kicking 65.
Yeah, true.
And I think obviously Dacos of the Nick variety does help enormously with transition into the forward 50. But at the end of the day, and look, McStay's kicked 4 goals, so he probably doesn't get bullied too much here. But they're relying on our forward line of McStay and Membry. I don't have a problem with these guys, but neither of them are major target key forwards. They were able to get by because Myercheck is a production freak in recent seasons, but he's not there. So we're in a position where we're just waiting for Ben King. And if Ben King doesn't sign the dotted line, we actually could be in a real bit of trouble here for Collingwood, because while I still think they've got the bones of a team that can go deep into September, I'm starting to wonder how reliable they can be in front of goal, and can they simply do the basics like taking marks inside 50 that lead to scoring opportunities? Can they trust that process?
I tipped Collingwood on this game because I just like the way the team functions together, but there's got to be a limit to that, right? The team can only do so much if there's all these other issues lingering around the field, which definitely came to the fore. But Kitty Coleman, great game from Kitty.
Great game.
I still remember when you said this in a fantasy, which you can catch on tips and trades later on. You said Kitty Coleman was a pickup, and I was just like, is he? And then thank you for that, Jesse. Thank you for that hot tip, because he's been fantastic.
Thank you. I'm making it harder for myself to beat you and still doing it comfortably. Marks inside 50, Liam. I want you to tell me what you think the marks inside 50 count was.
Ooh, you're the stats guy. That's true. Okay, marks inside 50. I'm going to say, I don't even know what a normal marks inside 50 count is for a game, Jesse.
Okay,
26 to 7.
Not terrible. 20 to 5. So Brisbane's average is 14 in 2026. Collingwood's is 10. So 5 marks inside 50 is not going to cut the mustard. And keep in mind, Brisbane are kind of held together with sellotape down back at the moment. So that's a real concern. That is the type of thing I look at with Collingwood and say, that is a problem. Yeah. Not so much missing Nick Dacos for a week. That's fine, right? I don't think Nick Dacos missing this game resulted in a 10-goal loss or a 9-goal loss. I don't think that's the case.
No, that's fair. It was something that popped into my brain, Jesse, as a good talking point, and you've quashed it, which is good. But no, I think
but we talked about it, and now it's quashed.
Yes, correct. Brisbane looking obviously back to their normal selves. Interesting to see what they do in gather round this week. I think they've got a pretty easy one actually. Who have they got? North Melbourne. That should be fun. Because obviously 17 behinds to go with those 17 goals. It could have been much, much worse. That is for sure. Logan Morris looking good, that young fella, isn't he? The aforementioned Logan Morris. Unbelievable. Anything else to add about this one, Jesse?
This Brisbane forward line is going to cause a lot of problems just because there's so many tall boys and they can all take a mark.
They can all take a mark, and importantly,
except for Draper, who just flaps at the ball.
Didn't they chuck him down back for a bit in this game as well? Just do something.
I think that was a get out of the way move.
Understandable. All right, Jesse, let's move on to the next game on Friday, Good Friday at lunchtime. This is a talking point from all the games this round, probably one of the biggest talking points. 14-12, 96 of the Kangaroos getting over the Carlton Blues, 13-8, 86 in another game, Jesse, where Carlton threw it away. Do we have to sugarcoat it? That's just what happened, right? They just Threw it away.
I think you have sugarcoated it because Carlton just this is not acceptable. This is on the playing group. Now, obviously we're at a point where Michael Voss is likely to get the flick. And whether that happens this week, whether it happens in a month, like realistically, and I've said this multiple times, I don't think Voss is a bad coach, but he's terrible for this environment and it's just not working. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it's just not better together. And you can have a no-fault divorce, and that is okay. And I think Carlton probably need to look at, the divorce attorney. I'm sure there's plenty on Lygon Street that can give them a hand. But this is a mental fragility problem, and I'm going to call out Patrick Cripps here.
He looks a bit unsure of himself nowadays, doesn't he, old Cripper?
He looks slow, does he not? Like, Patrick Cripps is a superstar of this competition and has been at the highest level now for a decade. And when I say the highest level, I mean the upper echelon of the competition, like a top 5 player in the comp pretty continuously from, let's say, 2016 through to about 2024. But it's pretty clear now looking at some of these numbers, and I will get said numbers up now. I mean, 21 touches, 326 metres gained, 7 clearances. So he's not hopeless, but you compare it to LDU, 22 touches, 9 clearances. The bigger boys are starting to go past him a bit.
You know what it is, Jesse? You just need someone else to replace your Fife discussion points. You move them on to a new person. That's Patrick Cripps.
That's true. That's true.
No, but a big win for the young Kangas as well. Like, obviously, they've got a couple this year. And obviously, against a team like Carlton, it was always going to be a bit of a coin toss. But it's good to see that they still have that gumption. Not still, they have that gumption now to actually close out games.
They've developed that gumption because they didn't 100%. Against the Eagles. No,
correct. And look, there's still going to be times where the gumptions run out. They've got to go to the store and get some more. But you saw like last year when they were playing, was it last year or the year before? I can't remember which one it was against Collingwood, that 51-point margin that they threw away. That was kind of, the North that we would know. Like, no matter what the margin was, it would always come back. This is the reverse of that, which is really nice to see. Can't have just taken that mantle, really, haven't they? Cannot finish. What else, Jesse? What else to talk about this one?
I think we really need to emphasise how bad this Carlton team is because, like, North have gone straight past it. This is a team that was in the preliminary final, 3 years ago in 2023? They are a absolute shadow of a serious football side. And we could talk, I don't think it's fair to dump on the kids here too much, but Hewitt's probably held his production and is doing fine. Holland's had a very good game. Cripps has fallen off a cliff. Ainsworth just does cardio. Florent does nothing. Walsh had a bad game. Newman was okay. Chera does nothing as per usual. Elijah Hollins was okay. Smith had a quiet one, but again, we're not dumping on the kids. Pitnet was good in the ruck against makeshift ruck trio for North, almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, like, you look at it. Lewis Young had a shocker. McGovern kicked 2 goals, but is never really a threat. Like this, and I guess Wade Dirkson's a good example of what we talked about in the deep dive. Like, he's not an AFL player, is he? Like really? Like, really? Like, he's not.
The fact that I'm not too sure who you're talking about, Jesse, says it all. And then this is the fun part, because obviously you're a savant. You know all the players. I do not. And Dirksen is not one that I know, which speaks to your point.
Thank you.
No, I think it'd be interesting to see if, Carlton backed Voss in, at least through Gather Round, but you reckon it might be sooner than later, Jesse?
Yeah, I do. And again, I want to emphasise, I don't think it's Michael Voss's fault necessarily. This is all Michael Voss's fault. But this relationship is clearly not working.
And you know what?
You need to see other people, guys.
And we'll talk about another team coming up where they have decided to see other people and it's working out a treat. But we're not up to that just yet, Jesse. We're up to this game. Good Friday night. 11-10-76 to the Adelaide. It was indeed 11-10-76 to the Adelaide Crows, going down to the Dockers 11-12-78 in what was a bit of a nail biter for us Freo fans at the end there. But good to see that they could finish out a game after going behind. It's very nice. However, Jesse, another game this year where we've had a massive lead or a sizable lead, 6 goals around about that mark, and haven't been able to hold on to it. It's becoming a bit of an epidemic for the Dockers this year.
I do wonder if this win is more of a case of Adelaide having some wobbles at the moment in close games than it is for Fremantle. And look, realistically, they probably should have scored in that last 90 seconds. And it was obviously a brilliant smother by Pearce, a great dual effort by Geordie Clark. And those things you can hang your hat on and say that's brilliant individual efforts. But I think if you look at the collective effort from Fremantle, I think you have to have an element of disappointment with the way in which this became a close game. they just it's not a side that can crush opposition teams, whether you're talking about a Geelong or an Adelaide, or a Melbourne or a Richmond, on either end of the scale. 6-7 on either end of the scale.
Well, I mean, and this is the thing, Jesse, like, and don't forget everybody, Jesse's wearing the Freo shirt. I've got my little Freo thing behind here. We are Freo fans. We're stoked with this win. It's just there's still some epic concerns that we have, because Freo's best is fantastic. When Freo are going and they're running, and we see it in the game, like their best is so good. But it just feels like whenever the opposition puts a little bit of pressure onto them, they lose poise. There's no plan B, and they kind of go into a panic mode. Like, that's what I get concerned about. I'm sure you do as well, Jesse. But when we come up against a pressure side, that we're going to get destroyed. If there's going to be a team like the Bulldogs, for example, who just pressure the entire game, Hawthorn, Geelong, obviously we've done Geelong already, but you watch those teams and the pressure that we saw in that game. If you have a team that can do that for 4 quarters, we're probably going to get pantsed. So prove us wrong, JLo, as we always say. Like, what's plan B? What's the backup? What's the backup? But great win though. Great
win. Can we talk about some player performances, because for both sides? Because there's a couple of guys I'm really worried about. Obviously, Riley O'Brien was terrible and probably cost Adelaide the game by booting straight into Sean Darcy. Which, I mean,
he's pretty big though. He's pretty big.
He is, but he's also not like an office building. You can kick it over him.
True.
Like that part's
people have done it before.
and they will no doubt do it again. He was awful. Don't want to see Sherry. I think I'm okay with him not playing anymore. He doesn't do anything. I know he was great against a very ordinary Melbourne side on debut, but he did nothing against Richmond. He's done nothing here. If you do nothing for a fortnight, you probably shouldn't be playing.
Which is fine, but I mean, I think he's got some good experience to start in anyway. So I think we've seen that he's got the ability, but maybe more seasoning is required. Yes.
Great to see Jay Amos get the scoreboard reward for his effort, because he is an excellent player. The debates about him being dropped were farcical at the start of the season, because Pat Voss can't play second tall. So if you're going to drop Jai, you have to figure out which 19-year-old on the list is going to play second tall. Or you're going to have to play Sean Darcy as a second tall, and I don't want to do that. So great to see Jai get the reward for his effort that he very much deserved. Matt Johnson's having a great start to the season as well. One of the guys that does look comfortable with the pressure being on in this game, certainly compared to last year, he seems to be a lot more confident in his decision-making. And even if he's making the wrong call, which he is still very much liable to do on occasion, but he's doing it in a much more assertive way. Like, he's not second-guessing himself like a player. I find Erasmus does this a bit.
Who are you talking about?
Johnson.
Oh, Johnson. I thought you started moving on to another player, and I was waiting for you to say who that player was. I got very confused.
No. Concerned about Switkowski as well. I think he might get saved by Sherry being dropped, but he's also not having a very good year, if we're being honest. On the Adelaide side of things, I mean, I absolutely maintain Josh Worrell is an All-Australian in waiting this season. He has been brilliant, nothing short of it. Dawson was just about heroic, especially when the comeback was on. McAndrew is having a great season to start this off. And Wayne Miller has really lifted his performances as well, consistently in and around the best plays. You've got Peatling in there as well. She probably knows that he kicked that huge goal that lifted the Adelaide Oval crowd. So, look, overall, I know I've made it sound like it was the worst game ever for Fremantle. It definitely wasn't. And it's a lot better than a loss. But, you know, you can win 14, 15 games this season and still be unconvincing. And I think that was the case with the Dockers last year. And I still broadly think that's the case this year, from what we've seen.
Song was great. Reid was fantastic. We got a three tool system as well, and they all looked really good. Like Tracy can't drop anything at the moment. Knock wood. Let's hope that keeps going. But I mean, start of the third quarter. I mean, it's accuracy. If they get the accuracy in, we're going to be fine. But we'll move on, Jesse, because I know that when I do the timestamps for each of the games, it's always like 3 minutes, and the Freo game's like 12 and a half minutes. So we'll move on. Great win by the Freo Dockers, despite all that. Hopefully they can keep it up next week. Let's go on to the next game. Jesse at the MCG on Saturday. The Tigers 6-12-48 going down to the Port Adelaide Power 13-12-90. What is there to say about this one?
Disappointing for Richmond, because the margin's 42 points, which isn't great to start with, but they look like they've really started to get second season syndrome with the bounce they were meant to have out of the 2024 draft. They're not looking competitive at the moment, the Tigers. And I think if you look at with the exception of the Carlton game, they've been beaten by 10 goals by the Suns, 10 goals by Fremantle, 7 goals by Port. Like they're in these games for a little bit, but I mean ultimately, like they just can't score. Lafau, Jonty Fall, I mean these guys just can't score. And without Tomlin, that's who they're relying on for goals. So, I think we're a long way off with Richmond, and it's a real shame because I thought we might see some real momentum coming off last season. But I think that they've probably been one of my bigger disappointments so far this season, just how flat they've looked as well. And I know they've got a couple of key injuries, so that's worth caveating too. But I do really feel like they've regressed over the off season, which is a shame because I thought it'd be the opposite.
Do you reckon it is that missing piece of the leadership there, Jesse? That's doing them in. I know they've got some of the older players still there, obviously, but Nankervis is a bit of a stalwart for them.
Yeah, I don't think losing out on a guy like Nankervis is helping the cause for them. But I mean, that's where you got to have guys. I mean, like, what does Hopper do? Like this guy's a almost 10-year AFL veteran. Like, I mean, Taranto's does what Taranto does: crash, bash, handball. But, like, I mean, it's just, you're not getting anything out of these guys. I mean, like, realistically, Hopper and Taranto have brought in to continue a very good Richmond list and keep them up and about. And they now find themselves in a position where, oh no, we're really bad. And, I mean, Presti's obviously been there for the good times now and the bad times. But, like, Presti or Hopper and Taranto's midfield just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, they're all too slow collectively, which is a real problem. I'd love to see Sam Lawler, if Uze's comfortable with his fitness, I'd love to see Lawler in the midfield more because I think we need to start saying, well, look, we're getting thumped anyway.
Yeah, but it's already an early concern with old Lawler, isn't it? The old health concerns, which is hopefully not something that plagues him for his career because he's a very good player. So yeah, hopefully that's something to be concerned with there, Jesse. But let's talk about Port Adelaide. We talked about at the start of the year, they're very, very soft opening to the season. This takes them to 2-2. When realistically looking at the start of the season, they probably should have won everything. 2-2 at the moment. Convincing win here. What are your thoughts?
I mean, they certainly did enough here to win. Butters was good. DBJ was good. Alirali was fantastic. I'm glad you've got him as the best of the best because he was brilliant in this game. But look, I mean, I look at this Port list and I don't need to regurgitate Kane Corns every 5 minutes, but like, there's a few guys out here that are probably pretty lucky to be getting Guernseys at AFL level. And while it doesn't hurt you against a team that also has players probably pretty lucky to be getting Guernseys at AFL level, there will be games against non-bottom six teams that will eventually have to play, and those games may not end up going very well.
No, not at all. Should we move on, Jesse, to the next game?
I think we should.
Oh, dear. At Optus Stadium, Saturday, April 4th, 4-11-35 to the Eagles, going down to the Sydney Swans 24-19, 163. It's our first pantsing of the year. We thought there might be two. There was only the one this round. What's he doing? Jesse's rowing. He's skiing downhill.
I am. I'm the Sydney downhill skiers because once again, against the bad side, Sydney can hurt you.
Yeah.
I think we got the instructor, Charlie Kerner. He's found himself in a perfect environment for a downhill skier, surrounded by a team of downhill skiers. Gee, this was very one-sided from go to woe. This was this is very hard. You talk about progress not being linear. I think that's been the case with North as well. But progress isn't linear when you're rebuilding. And obviously, it was a great fortnight for West Coast coming into this game.
Sure.
This probably puts them further behind than when they were coming out of the Gold Coast loss. Such as the dip. Because this is a very bad loss. And I think we need to talk about players here as well. Look, I'll keep it very simple with Sydney. They're good players play good.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the AFL fantasy scores, which we know is the only thing that you have to go by when thinking about good players, I think they had six players all with 100 points or over. Something like crazy like that. Like they were just...
They had five, but they had another two above 95.
Yeah, just racking them up for fun. Actually, I mean, let's be honest, Jesse. There's probably not too much to talk about in terms of the Sydney side.
No, there isn't. Like, honestly, there isn't. They've beaten a side that was rubbish on the day.
He's had a good year so far, but some of the old Harley came back in this game, and that old Harley was, we're losing like crazy. I don't give a shit. That's kind of how it kind of felt, or it just got a bit chippy. Like, am I wrong with that assessment, Jesse?
I actually think you're 100% right. Harley was, phenomenally disappointing, I feel, for most of that game. And I mean, he doesn't help his case. He gives away stupid free kicks. He tries to over-insert himself in games. I think it's worth calling out guys like Liam Baker more because he did nothing all game. Like, you talk about leaders of the club. I mean, Liam Baker, Matt Flynn, these guys are leaders at the football club. Duggan as well. These guys were rubbish all game. For 3 hours out there, they were utterly terrible and did not look like AFL standard players. So when these guys are taking up your salary cap and meant to be leaders at a football club, well, what message does that send to Willem Dersma, to Cooper Duff Tyler, to even guys like Archer Reid, Job Shanahan, like the guys who have been in the system for a couple of years? Like, this is a terrible, terrible message when you've got your leaders doing nothing for 3 hours. I mean, why am I seeing Harley Reid walking back from contests as Sydney Street? Like, at least jog, mate.
Yeah.
Like, you're sponsored by Puma. I know they make good running shoes. If you need to do a couple of laps around the block before the game to get your legs warmed up, go and do it. I'm sure the herdsman markets will kick in, a sour strap for you.
Oh, nice.
But it's just, you look at his head, like, realistically, their best player by far, and he actually didn't make your best, which is interesting, although I don't think your best is necessarily wrong, but they're certainly their most dedicated player outside of Jimby, who was, I think, really good despite, Charlie Curnow, was Tim Kelly, who probably had one of his best games in recent times where they've been bad as a team. Like, normally when they're West Coast are bad, Kelly does absolutely nothing. It is in that conversation with Baker, Reid, and Flynn were today. But I thought Kelly had a good game. Hoff competed. That counts for something. But I mean, like, I don't think this is an issue of talent. This is a real downing tools in front of 50,000 of your home fans. And I think that is the disappointing part for West Coast because you're probably not expected to beat Sydney. You can even lose by 130 points and say that's, okay, we got absolutely smacked here. But the effort level and the willingness to just let the ball be hand passed over the top and then again and just be no chase pressure at all, like, that's your non-negotiables.
Well, I think you nailed it on the head though, Jesse, because off the back of the fortnight prior, I think there'd be a lot of Eagles supporters who are hoping for a lot more out of this game. And unfortunately, it is what it is. Tail of the tape is there. I think we should move on. Shall we move on, Jesse?
I think we should.
We spoke about coaches earlier. MCG on Sunday, April 5th. The Melbourne Demons 16-13-109, defeating the Gold Coast Suns 14-5-89. Case the Gold Coast Sun, Melbourne Yips, Jesse, or Stephen King. We talked about it before, about, Vossi and not being the right fit. Stephen King has come in and seemed to have just lit a fire under the arse of a lot of these Melbourne Demons players, led by Max Gawn as well, who's obviously taken that captain's mantle and run with it fairly strongly, as he always does. But something different about Melbourne this year, Jesse. Something different.
This is the anti-West Coast about what we just talked about. This is a team that isn't as good as the Suns on paper, certainly, and yet they just wanted to compete yesterday. They wanted to compete and they wanted to show up and have a go, and they did just that, and they got 4 points out of it. Now, I don't think the Suns had a bad game, but
no,
we're now in the conversation with Melbourne of, okay, we're not talking about a bottom six side here. We're talking about a team that's either just going to miss the wild card or be in the wild card come September. So, I think this is a great result for Melbourne across the board. Windsor continues to look good. I think Sharp's having a really good start to the season as well. That needs to be studied, how Stephen King's getting Harry Sharp to get goals on a weekly basis. Cosy Pickett is excellent. Jack Steele, I mean, he's $400,000 of his salary still being paid by St Kilda, who, are still searching for those big boy pants. Steele's just said, mate, I go to Peter Jackson. Look at what I've got. Look what's in my bag.
That's some fancy pants.
Well, he's been showing some fancy pants because he's been killing it. 11 clearances in this game.
His post-match interview, he basically said as much. He was just like, yeah, it's nice to be winning, is basically what he said. And he just seemed to have a bit more of he seemed happy. He seemed happy, Jesse, which is nice to see. You like your players to be happy playing footy. Obviously, the wins definitely help. But no, it was really nice to watch the D's in this game. It's really nice to watch any team that's kind of been struggling show these performances. I mean, fairly consistently across this year as well for Melbourne, especially.
Well, I think they could have beaten Fremantle a couple of weeks ago. Had Fremantle not kicked the two very late goals in the third quarter that killed that game off, I think they absolutely could have beaten Fremantle in round two. They've obviously they've beaten Carlton, come from behind, not that hard, but this is the result you hang your hat on. Is it
Yeah.
not? This is the result you look at and say, okay, there's something here. Now, we could talk about Gold Coast and the Melbourne Yips, but this is a good result. And you know what? I think they did it still without a lot of their best players, or a lot of players that they probably would ordinarily rely on to have big games. I mean, their forward line is still relying on Jake Melksham.
It was all right. It was pretty good, though.
He kicked 4, so he's done very well here.
Took a bit of a hanger.
He can fly. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Melksham. Let's talk about Gold Coast, because I don't think this is as bad as people are making it out to be. Much in the same way, I don't think Collingwood's loss to Brisbane isn't as bad as people are making it out to be. This is just a case of Melbourne's pressure was unrelenting, and I still think the Suns are learning to deal with games that aren't going their way.
Yeah.
And that's a process, and that's not going to come straight away. And we saw that with, I think Collingwood probably learnt that on the fly under McRae in 22 and 23, and look what that got them. But, you know, it will take playing groups different levels. Brisbane have probably gone through that as well, learning that finals pressure and that environment, and now look at them, dual premiers going for a third. So it will come for them. I'm not too stressed about that in their regards. Ben King is still having a fantastic season. Potentially disappointing in the midfield would be my only comment. I think Anderson had his best game. Toot Miller had a bit of a down game as well.
Yeah, he did.
That's probably the thing you would say, okay, we need to have a look at that from a Suns point of view. But look, I mean, it's one loss in a 24-game season. Unless you're showing this performance 3 or 4 more times, I think you can probably just live with this one.
Good week to leave Ezekiel on my bench as well in the fantasy. Whoopsie daisy. All right, Jesse, let's move on. Anything else to add for this one before we move on to Sunday?
No, let's go to the last game on Sunday.
Boom. 14-15-99 to the Bulldogs, defeating Essendon 9-11-65. You can hear there's no excitement in my voice, Jesse, because I expected, and I think we both expected this to be an absolute demolition. We didn't get it. And I'm upset by that.
I can tell. You're very upset by this.
I thought they were going to win by over 100. They didn't make 100. You can't.
I just don't think they cared.
No, honestly, no.
I don't think they cared.
Sometimes you get teams who get stung by the fact that this is going to be a cakewalk. I don't think the Bulldogs were too worried about that, to be honest with you, at all. Good to see some fight from the Bombers, though.
It was.
Obviously, Farrow had a really fantastic game. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the Bombers. To be honest with you. They put up some fight.
Merritt had a good game, although his partners caused him a bit of strife this week. She posted a TikTok saying she left at halftime to go eat food, and Essendon fans don't like that apparently. So that I would say, I would leave at halftime as well if I had to watch that. You know, that's great. But look, I mean, it's nice from Essendon. They showed a little bit of fight, but I mean, like, realistically, the skill level's not there. And I know he kicked 3 goals, but like Gresham in 2026, Guelphy in 2026, like these guys aren't cutting the mustard, unfortunately, and it's going to be a long process for the Bombers. Archie Roberts had a very busy game off half-back, which is probably to be expected.
Yes,
but
correct,
to his credit, he stood up with aplomb. Merritt had a good game. Zach Johnson's put together a couple of good weeks. He was good against Port as well. Farrow, you mentioned before, was good too. Zach Reid looked capable as well. But, I mean, they're just so limited by the fact that Parrish, Caldwell, McGrath, these guys are just players. Like they're just battlers at the end of the day. And that's kind of where Durham did nothing as well. Like, it's just not a very good team. The Dogs, you know, they were never in serious trouble. Bont just did what Bont does. Get lots of ball. Look very handsome. Kick ball. Honestly, like, I don't really know what else you want me to say about this, because it was easy.
Honestly, I don't actually think there's anything to say about this game and what we've already said, because what happened. It expected.
Whatever happens.
That's right. Let's move on to today's game, Jesse, that is finished mere hours ago. Hour. MCG. Easter Monday Classic. 13-14-92 to the Hawks. Just getting over the Geelong Cats. 14-7-91 off the boot of a famous behind by Jack Gunston. Now, game of the year, Jesse? Yes or no?
Yes. and a shining example of two teams with excellent lists.
Yes, I mean, this was just pure footy, right? This. We were both texting each other watching this game going, oh, this is some game. And we love footy. Footy's back. And because it was that good to see two teams at the peak of the competition just go hammer and tong for 4 quarters, just not relenting. You know, akin to that first game against the Brisbane versus Bulldogs game, it was very, very similar. This one had a bit of an extra little bit of mustard because of the historical kind of the historical rivalry between these two. Nick Watson, though, the whiz. Bit of a difference maker today, wasn't he?
He was a conduit. Plenty of guys stood up for Hawthorn that last quarter. Watson was sensational all day. Gunston was brilliant. Ginnivan kicked that really vital goal on the 3/4 time siren, which made a massive difference. McDonald Ward also had very good games as well. I thought Impey was very good off half back too, which does certainly help in these situations. And you know what? I thought Ned Reeves had a really good game as well, sharing the ruck duties with Meek. I thought that was a nice little combination that worked out well there. And it made sense in the context of what Geelong's ruckman were. I mean, admittedly, it's also worth caveating with that Edwards, I thought, had a good game too. But knowing they were going to play two lighter framed ruckman in Blixarves and Edwards, it's good tactics by Hawthorn to bring in two bigger guys to kind of ragdoll them. And look, it almost hurt them. Blixarves got that crucial goal to make it a 13-point game. I think he made it.
Yeah.
And, so it very nearly didn't come off, but, it's worn down over the course of 3 hours. I think that helped.
There was no giving this one, Jesse. We were talking about the mentioning poor skills. Like the last quarter of this was just error ridden, but it was because it was just the pressure and it was fever pitch was so high that no one really knew what to do. They were doing all sorts of crazy stuff. It was quite funny to watch, but like it was an apt ending to that game, I think, because when you've got two teams who are just out on their legs because they've been putting it in for so long and they just keep going, you're going to get that, aren't you?
Yeah, that was a finals-like atmosphere in April.
Yes. Some interesting umpiring decisions as well. I'm sure the Geelong Cats fans will say, only because they lost, though. if
that's how it works, isn't it?
Of course it is. What else to say about this one, Jesse?
From the Geelong side, Bailey Smith was very good for the first 3 quarters, but didn't do much when the game was on the line.
Interesting.
It was Holmes who was lifting, and
yes.
Humphreys who was lifting. It wasn't Bailey Smith late, which is, I think, it's not necessarily a concern, but it's worth mentioning.
Was they were talking about them finally putting a tag on him, though, Jesse? Would that have something to do with it?
Well, I think that's probably it. Helped. It didn't help. They had free reign of the G for the first 2.5 quarters.
It's strange that it took him that long, to be honest with you.
I think Mitchell wants his players to play their way.
Sure.
And back in his boys to get each other. And look, ultimately, it didn't hurt them. They won the game.
That's true.
But it'll be interesting to see if there is any change to that approach over the coming weeks.
No, Shannon Neal was good as well, up forward. He's just taken that Tommy Hawkins mantle, hasn't he? Just in every capacity.
He sure has.
Every capacity. The 60-metre bomb after the siren, thank you very much. Not to end the game this time, but hey, it was still very nice to see. No, not much more to say about that one, Jesse. It was a classic game. Shall we call it there? Should we end the podcast, Jesse? Or do you want to wax lyrical on this one some more?
Well, I think we shouldn't end the podcast. We're back next week, but we can end this episode.
Yeah, true.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the 7 Minute Perfect AFL podcast. We promise maybe that we'll be back next week. Until then, a like, a share, and a subscribe on YouTube, a review, and a rating on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon will do us well. But the best type of review you can give us is word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone at work tomorrow after that long Easter weekend that you listen to this 7 Minute Perfect AFL podcast. Hope you enjoyed your footy week. Stick around for tips and trades on the YouTube platform if you are there. If you're not over there, go over there because that video will be released a day after this one. As always, I'm Jesse. That's Liam. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the 7 Minute Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.